Here's something we could all do together during lockdown. Cancel chlamydia. Yeah. Get on top of your sexual health during quarantine with my sponsor, Let's Get Checked. And let's get rid of this pesky venereal disease. Not only do Man Whore Podcast listeners get 20% off their at-home test kits, 10% of all sales using promo code MANWHORE during the month of May will be donated to the National Network of Abortion Funds. Help us hashtag cancel chlamydia today at letsgetchecked.com and use promo code MANWHORE. Again, that's promo code MANWHORE at letsgetchecked.com. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Thank you to all the frontline hospital heroes, the underpaid warehouse workers, and that Wendy's employee who slipped me an extra Frosty. Thanks, buddy. Ha! This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to a sex-positive podcast hosted by a comedian that's not a comedy show. This week on the pod, I am so excited for this one. We have got on producer, director, and intimacy coordinator, Regina Banali. And I cannot wait to share her with y'all in this fascinating topic in a little bit. But first, not show dates, people. Come on, what shows are happening? It's emails. Let's do your emails. This next one's fun. This is an Instagram DM from Stephanie. She DM'd me that, hey, I'm Stephanie from England. My boyfriend, David, and I have been listening to your podcast for a while. He even introduced me to it. That was over a year and a half ago. He said you play Settlers of Catan, and we started playing today online in lockdown. I'm beating his ass. We would like to challenge you to a game. Never gotten that DM before, and I was so excited because, yes, I do love Settlers of Catan. No, I do not own a board so that I could play, in person during quarantine. And yes, I am a big fan of playing on Catan Universe. And I did play these two in a game, and I told him, because I was like, a year and a half, you're not Patreon members. What are you doing? If I win this game, David needs to join my Patreon. And I did smack that shit down, and he is a $10 member, so oh right. Look, just because we're in lockdown doesn't mean we can't find new, fun, creative ways to gamble. But thank you for reaching out, Stephanie and David. I look forward to playing again soon. And by the way, if you want to put together like a fan whore Catan game, I mean, I'm down. Just shoot me an email. Okay, this last one is this is our very first voice memo email feedback thing, which you can do. I don't know why I haven't invited this sooner. If you ever want to send your audio feedback, you can record that using the voice memo function on your phone and then email it to manwhorepod@gmail.com. And you can hear your voice on the show. All right, this one comes from Aurora.
I apologize because this voice message is not sex related, but I'm listening to one of your Corona casts right now, and your food issues are making me feel so fucking seen. It sounds very similar to things I deal with, so thank you for that, so I don't feel like such a freak. Hope you're having a good day.
Thank you, Aurora, and I appreciate it. I know I'm not the only picky eater out there, and I'm not even that fucking weird about it. I just, I like the foods that I like. What's the problem? I'm glad you could connect to that one too. She is referring to last Saturday's Corona cast, episode 323, where Megan chides me for my lack of expansive eating preferences. And if that wasn't enough, I think this Saturday you're going to hear her talk on the Corona cast with my mother. Literally ask her, why is he like this when it comes to the food? I never thought they would do 20 minutes on my eating habits. I gave them the mic and I thought okay, these two gals can have fun. I didn't know they were going to obsess over it. So Aurora, if you feel seen then, get ready to feel attacked on Saturday. But thanks for writing in. And one more time, you can send your comments, your questions, your titty pictures, your voice feedback memos to manwhorepod@gmail.com. I want to remind people tomorrow, May 7th, is the very first monthly Man Whore Munch. We're having a Zoom get-together with the $7 and up members of my Patreon community, having a Zoom chat, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The first hour is clothing required. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say something is going to happen at 10:30. I'm not saying something's not going to happen at 10:30. $7 members, by the way, also get access to nearly 200 bonus episodes of the Man Whore podcast, my private Patreon-only posts, as well as access to our super secret Facebook group, The Champagne Room. So there are a lot of ways to become a member and be a part of an awesome, fabulous, sex-positive community. And that's a great time to say it's time for the Fan Whore Appreciation moment. Okay. Thank you to Randy J. Maples. Randy, who has the horniest first name that ever was. It's the horniest first name ever. It used to be Dick, short for Richard. And then someone started deciding to name children Randy. And that, became the horniest name. So good job, dude. Thanks for being a member. Shout out to Mo. Mo bitches, Mo money, Mo alimony. Thanks for being a member. I want to give a shout out to Alexander Goya, who all I know really is a Vegas boy. And oh God, can't wait to get back to Vegas. And a shout out to Jessica Nyland. Welcome back, sweetie. We know you had to leave for a little while and now you're back and we're happy to have you. I know I missed you. Thanks for being a member again. Join us today at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. I'm just super grateful to the Fan Whore community. You all have literally been the reason that I am remaining calm during quarantine. And while I'm able to focus on, making cool content for you, going twice a week. Yeah. A lot of podcasts, they ramp down. They're like, hey, we'll be back later. No, I was like, I'm giving you more episodes, still giving you your bonus episode production. And I get, picking up freelance writing gigs, getting published in magazines. I'm only able to focus on that because of the consistency of my membership, of my Fan Whore community. Y'all mean so fucking much to me. I appreciate that you pay for some of your content. I don't care if you're a $1 pledge or a $20 pledge. You mean the world to me. And now for this week's guest, Regina Banali. Regina Banali is a director, a producer, and also an intimacy coordinator. I had a chit chat with Regina about this new position that's starting to pop up in Hollywood. I don't think we think about how these sex scenes get put together. I know I personally just thought the two actors either worked it out amongst themselves or they showed up to set and they gave it a go. I didn't think about like how much it could be orchestrated or how much it should be orchestrated. I certainly didn't think of, the problems that can arise on set doing sex scenes, especially sex scenes that don't go rehearsed or talked about. It doesn't differ that much from the communication that we need to have with newer sex partners, right? You talk about what's okay, what's not okay, what's a maybe. Well, yeah, why wouldn't that carry on set? That makes total fucking sense. Let's go talk with director Regina Banali. Coachella's canceled. My sister's wedding is canceled. Even orgies are canceled. But here's one thing I think we all want to cancel during the coronavirus pandemic. Chlamydia. Yeah, imagine this. Check it out. If we all got tested, right now, while stuck in our homes, right? And then we got those who test positive treated. Chlamydia would be canceled, right? Am I wrong in thinking this? Worldwide, chlamydia. It'd be gone. Chlamydia wouldn't be able to get a job as a local weatherman. You gone, Chlamyds. Get the fuck out of here. We may not be able to get everyone tested, but you can do your part to help make a big dent in what the WHO estimates are tens of millions of STIs acquired every month. I'd like to introduce you to our new sponsor, Let's Get Checked, a company with the mission to make professional health testing easily accessible. Their tests are fast, easy to do, and don't require you to wait in a doctor's office. You know, being there right now, just sitting there, looking around, just thinking, like, that dude's touching his face a lot. I'm just saying, like, how about I stay home in my slippers and do the test in like 5 minutes? I think that sounds more comfy. Okay, I don't even have to wear pants to be responsible about my sexual health. You can get tested with Let's Get Checked for just chlamydia and gonorrhea, or you can expand your order to include tests for syphilis, HIV, and more. And yes, there are more than just those. Hey, people. Man Whore Podcast listeners are going to get 20% off their test kit when they use promo code MANWHORE at letsgetchecked.com, or you can click the link in the show notes. To encourage you to get tested and hashtag cancel chlamydia right now, 10% of all sales in May using my promo code MANWHORE will be donated to the National Network of Abortion Funds, which helps remove the financial and logistical barriers to abortion access, especially in underserved communities. Again, you must use my promo code MANWHORE to help raise money for this important organization. Let's emerge from this quarantine with a clean bill of sexual health. Get tested safely from home at letsgetchecked.com or click the link in the show notes. One more time, that's promo code MANWHORE at letsgetchecked.com. Now let's get to the show.
A lot of times you'll look at IMDb page and you see certain roles and like that have name like mermaid, number, whatever, right? Most people go like, I knew exactly who that was. I was like, oh my God, it's her.
Yes,
big fan.
Oh yes, I was one of the underwater mermaids in Steven Spielberg's Hook.
And you were saying that there was like a big, like you had some thoughts and feelings on it that you were sharing before.
I was very young. It was one of my first roles, and I wasn't really managed well. I don't think I wasn't mentored or guided well, and I was really young and full of myself, and I thought, it was actually originally a big part. It had 6 scenes and there was a lot of dialogue.
Okay.
There were above water scenes talking to Robin Williams, and so it was supposed to be a launch pad,
right,
for me. And I didn't really know career strategy then, like I do now, or like better than I did then. And nobody was really guiding me at the time. And my agents and managers they just weren't that helpful. And I talk to young actors about this now, because at the time when I booked the role, there was about a year between booking the role and the film coming out.
Yeah.
And when I booked the role, all the casting directors wanted to bring me in for things because I had booked this big role.
She's about to break out in that new Robin Williams flick. Here we go.
And it was for things like Children of the Corn 4 or something, but at the time I was like, I don't need Children of the Corn 4. I'm about to be a big star in a Steven Spielberg movie. And so I didn't really work on my auditions, or sometimes I flaked on things.
How old are you, like, roughly when this is going on?
In my early 20s.
Early 20s. The most flaky of periods.
Yes. And, I flaked on a Baywatch audition. I really, really was full of myself. And I was overconfident in what this was going to happen for me. And my agents and managers were just like, okay. You can tell I'm a Kubrick fan.
Yeah. You want freakies? The first burlesque show I ever went to, it was in Philadelphia, and it's a recurrent burlesque show where they always do the theme of like some director, and they do all the acts are based on that. Uh-huh. Well, the night my friend took me out to this burlesque show, it's Stanley Kubrick themed. Ooh. And yes, they did Clockwork Orange. Wow. And yes, it was that scene.
Oh my God.
Very confusing. I was like, so should I be turned on? Should I be horrified? I'm not sure. It's like they're taking a very horrific scene and making it sexy.
Right. Okay. So anyway, so back to what happened to me is through the course of working on the film and all of the subsequent changes that happened to those scenes,
Uh-huh.
most of them were cut out.
And did
all
y'all
the-
shoot them?
We shot one of them,
Okay.
which was cut out. And then and the stuff that we did underwater was the only thing left in the film. So it really, I kind of blew my window.
Mm.
And then once it came out, it was like, "Meep." And then I was like, oh, I guess I should have. I didn't.
Should have gone to that Baywatch audition.
I know. I didn't understand that was my moment to strike.
Right. What's the mentality? Is it like, I'm just in this thing and then everything's going to come to me?
Well, what I thought the movie was going to come out and I was going to be in 6 scenes with
Yeah.
a ton of dialogue. And then I would be able to write my ticket because then I would get big stuff.
Right.
And when it didn't happen that way, I didn't have even the Children of the Corn 4.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything, so I really blew it on that. That was really stupid.
Yeah. How do you,
But I was young and stupid.
we live and
So,
learn.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm here right now with would you say a former actress?
Retired actress.
retired?
Former actress.
And intimacy coordinator, Regina.
Among many other things. I'm also
Among
a
anything,
director.
producer, director. Yeah.
Yes.
Regina Banali, everybody. And this job that one of the jobs that you have as an intimacy coordinator is like fascinating to me because it's like, I don't think anyone even thinks that job exists. I don't think everyone realizes what goes into that. Do you want to explain a little bit what the job is?
Well, it's basically, in a nutshell, it's like a stunt coordinator for sex scenes.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing that?
For about a year.
And has this been like a role that has been existing a long time?
It's only been around for about 2 years.
Why did it take so long for something that seems like a no-brainer?
I know it has taken a long time. Mid to late 90s, I did a bunch of low budget films and there was a period of time when there was a straight to video
Right.
niche where there was a lot of action movies, that kind of TNA films and I did a bunch of love scenes. I probably did 150 different love scenes. And we were all of us actresses in that camp that got constantly hired in these. We were always in need of an advocate, and we were doing it for each other at the time. And I tried to get somebody hired and I helped my friends when they were doing their scenes because there wasn't anyone there. And there were a lot of violations and traumas that took place on those sets at the time. And nobody was listening. Nobody cared because...
What was the response when you would say, hey, we should have someone who's like assisting with this? Because this is also
crickets.
Yeah. Crickets. Just no reply.
Just
no
like,
callback.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe we'll do that the
crickets.
next one.
Crickets.
Yeah. And this is all just to be conscious of it is wild because it's before like consent culture started like hitting mainstream.
Exactly. It was way before Me Too.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the allegations against Harvey are the reason why we have this role?
Yes. I think that was the catalyst that got people to start looking. When things are going by and you're kind of ignoring them, you get complacent and you get used to it, and then something major happens. And then you go, oh my God, that's terrible. And then you're like, wait, but this is kind of happening over here too. And then I'm kind of doing that a little bit over here. And then you start looking and going, oh wait, I'm not putting up with any of that anymore.
Yeah.
And then you start tamping it out in all of the places that you see it. So it kind of kicked it off, I think.
Yeah. And so what was the first kind of gig doing that like? Because you're going into a thing that no one been doing.
Well, everyone's been really receptive. The actors appreciate it. The producers appreciate it because it gets them off the hook because they're getting scared, especially male producers. They're scared now.
And like good.
Good.
Like good.
Yeah.
Be like, yes, people are scared, but also like it's good to be a little scared.
Yeah.
People tend to operate better.
Right. So it kind of, they kind of feel like, okay, good. So you can just you can take care of this and make sure that nothing goes wrong and where everybody's safe and comfortable and nothing ever comes back on us.
Mm-hmm. And like, what did it look like back then when you were just like helping your friends in the 90s as like an unofficial,
right?
Consultant?
Well, back in those days, there wasn't as many actresses as there are now. It was even smaller. As small of a town as LA is now, it was even smaller then. So that was like the same core, 30, 40 actresses that were doing all of that genre of films. So there were two kind of camps of women. There were the one camp that would parlay favors to the producers by by trying to coerce other women into being more suggestive and risque than they had wanted to. And then there was my camp that was out to help the other girls, tell them what's up, like, because there would be girls that cast in things that didn't even know what a patch was. And I'd be like,
what's a patch?
What's a patch? Back then, what we used as a barrier on the women was a patch, which is basically a big Band-Aid that you put on your genitals.
Oh, okay.
And then the guy wore a sock, basically. Not a real sock, but it was like a sack that we called a sock.
Okay. And the patch doesn't have like a waistline or something, so you can't.
Right. So so if you're standing up front, side, and back, you look nude.
And these girls didn't even know that. They just thought they were going to be nude.
Right. Or they thought, well, it's not going to be seen. And it's like, oh, there's two cameras in that room. And one of them is pointing where you don't know where it's pointing.
Right. And this is before the phones when like there's definitely a camera on you.
And there was no monitors.
Monitor as in like a physical person or like
no, I mean a monitor like a screen monitor because we were shooting on film. This is back in the old days.
Oh, yeah.
So we were shooting on film and there wouldn't be monitors where you could actually see what was being seen.
You could see like, is this nipple actually in frame or not type of thing.
Right. Yeah. So, and there was tricks that the producers were trying to pull on actresses. And, and my core group of girls, some of which are now also doing intimacy coordinating, we were always helping the new actresses and telling them, this is what you got to do. This is
what type of things would you be telling them?
Well, back in those days, I would bring my own patches and I would go and buy the kids kind that had cartoon characters on them so that you could definitely tell, you wouldn't be able to use a shot that looked kind of like where you could see something there because it's going
to be such a ridiculous pattern.
They didn't have VFX as well as they do now.
Okay.
They weren't spending it on that. They were spending $50,000 on film and processing, but they weren't doing, it's not like it is now with digital where you can just VFX something right out. So, I mean, this is all old timey stuff that we can't use anymore, but just to give you a history of what happened back then. Okay. My phone is going to keep going now. The dogs are going to bark. Where was I? So, yeah.
I was asking, like, what type of tips would you be giving the girls at the time?
Well,
because you were saying some of them were coming in bright-eyed and fresh-faced and had no idea what they were doing,
Well, tips on how to make it look good and believable, but also ways of blocking so that you didn't have to really be grinding up on the actor and which actors to watch out for and what to expect with certain actors that you're going to be working with.
What kind of things were the more problematic actors expected to be doing? Handsier than the script called for?
Well, the love scenes are never written.
No, of course.
So
but just
there's
the idea
nothing
of like,
in the script. Handsier than you want them to be, and also, just kind of rubbing up on you more than you need. Yeah.
Like going a little too far.
Yeah, where they're actually getting some gratification out of it.
Yeah.
As far as
abusing the situation,
yes,
be like, well,
taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, this scene is like a free ticket to some, to some stuff I wouldn't be able to get away with if there were no cameras around.
And me and several other actresses, we've had experiences where we go back to the dressing room and the the guy comes over into your room and he's got his robe open, or
He thinks, like, well, we just did it on camera, so we
yeah,
should
like
do it in
you were
real life.
into it. Oh yeah,
You were so into it. No, I'm a great actress.
yeah,
And so is your wife, probably.
And part of what happened, what's helping with just part of intimacy coordination. This is only just part of it.
Yeah.
Is choreographing each motion and getting consent from both actors, so that not only do you know what the other actor is going to do, but you can plan your response to it. Whereas if you're improvising, the way improvising works is you're acting and reacting. So an actor says go, and then you say something else off of what what they said or did. So when you're improvising a love scene and one actor does something, you feel like, oh, well, I should react like this way because my character is turned on by that. But then when you get the vibe that the other guy's like, oh, she likes this. And then you're like, no, buddy, I'm acting like... So then you freeze up and you become stiff and you stop reacting.
And then does the director look at you and be like, well, she can't handle this scene?
Yeah. And it's like, well, if you got a better actor or if this was just managed in some way.
Yeah.
But when you choreograph it and okay, he's going to touch your breast and you're going to react. And you both create that, you both create that scene together with that understanding, then you can plan your reaction, and both parties know that this isn't what we want to do. This is what the characters are doing, and it's not us.
Did it used to always be just more improvising love scenes?
Yeah, it was completely improvised.
And so now you're like really actually getting him through like this much, like, okay, he's going to grind onto you and he's going to grind onto you like this. And is that like, what's the negotiation on and off set like?
It's the director's vision.
Right.
You don't want to step on the director's toes because it's their vision, but you have to talk to the actors by themselves and find out what they're really okay with, because there's also a power dynamic with, not feeling being in the room when everyone looking at you, including the director, and is that okay? And you're like, well, yeah.
I don't want to say no, and then you guys think I'm difficult to work with.
Right. So part of being a good intimacy coordinator is being able to read people and really talk to them by themselves and really understand what is okay and what's not okay with them, and figuring out a way to capture the same story, and sometimes even in a better looking way, or in a way that at least doesn't violate their boundaries.
Right. And I think about Blue is the Warmest Color because I heard like such horror stories about that, where it was like the director's vision is like almost, it's too much vision to the point of like being unrealistic.
Right. That movie was made for the male gaze, in my opinion. I think those girls were taken advantage of. I feel like they were exploited. Those love scenes were ridiculously too long.
Even I was like, and look, I'll be honest, I was very turned on by the whole thing, but I'm like, this is also a little long.
Yeah.
How long are we doing? 15 full? I can't even do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those women came out of that film with some traumas.
I can imagine.
But what could they had no power at the time, and they were unknown actresses getting a big break. So, and
if someone like you was there, you'd be there to advocate for them and speak up and and I don't think that guy would hire an intimacy coordinator. I don't know him, but if his intention was to exploit them that way and make his film just for the male gaze, a lesbian film for the male gaze, I don't know if he's going to be down with being super PC. Yeah.
But I feel like that story could have been told with 45 minutes less of a movie and more authentic. Because I'm sorry, I don't think lesbians they don't scissor.
It's not as common as people think.
And
when you're talking when you're doing the negotiations over like what are you okay with, what are you not okay with, what are some examples of like someone saying no, and then how do you deal with, actually, I'm not comfortable with this particular action. Can we do something else?
Then you try to think of another way. Well, what's the point of the story? Why are these people, because it all boils down to, why is this sex scene here in this film? Why is it right here in the movie? How does this advance the story? Where are these characters? How are they developing into this? Why are they having, what are you trying to, what's the story element here? Why are they having sex with each other? Why are they having sex right now? And why are they having sex in this location? Yeah. So once you answer all those questions, you can come up with different scenarios and ideas that maybe answer those.
Yeah. Have you been hired for a job where it didn't make sense? Where like you're looking at it, be like, why are they fucking right now?
Look, human sexuality is just part of life. I think that sex scenes are beautiful and it's part of the story, and I'm not against that in any way. I think you can always make it work, unless you're, I think you can always make it work. So far, knock on wood, it's been okay. But
before the advent of like the intimacy coordinator, how are you handling love scenes in your own films that you were directing?
Well, in my film, I've only had so far a scene which was passionate kissing. Okay. And I talked to them beforehand, and we rehearsed it without the kissing, because I don't see a point in kissing in rehearsals. Okay. But I gave them clips and we talked it over, and I showed them exactly what kind of a kiss we were going for. And that's
the thing you have to do. You have to go find some YouTube videos of like, hey, this is what we're looking for.
It depends on what because my particular film was very genre specific. And I was going for a very particular kind of kiss. So I did that. And I think that does help when you're going for a specific thing. Okay.
How do you describe a kiss to the actors? I mean, outside of showing the examples, like, what's the kind of the language you use?
Well, you just use English. I mean, we all understand kissing.
Right, but
in that scene, I really wanted, my film was a spaghetti Western. So it was kind of a takeoff on some films that I had, and I actually had some clips. I was going for a very 60s passionate kiss, like old Elvis movies. Okay. And where in those films, the kiss was the orgasm, and and it never went past that. So that's the kind of kiss I was going for. So I showed them several clips and described it, and described the moment before, and we just captured it.
Did they nail it, or did you have to go, okay?
Nope, they nailed it.
I gotta imagine that can be awkward if you say, we need a kiss like this, and then they do it, and you're like, that's not the kiss I was going for. I was going for more tongue, less tongue, or whatever. I think
we just went over it so much beforehand that they just nailed it.
Okay. You mentioned, back in the day, that like certain producers and directors had some tricks that they would pull. Mm-hmm. I mean, what kind of nefarious tricks would be going down?
Well, a lot of times there would be two cameras. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, during the love scenes, they would be improvised, and they would have a camera moving. Okay. So it's moving around and getting different shots. So they could cut it together, and they can repeat shots and make like a 2-minute thing with music over it. Right. And sometimes they would have two cameras. Mm. And sometimes that second camera is just pointing on the girl's crotch the entire time. And then you're moving around, and you're not watching like, wait, where's that camera and what's being shown? You're just thinking you're turning over or turning or something or bending, and they're catching part of your anatomy that you didn't want.
Like if you don't have that in the contract, like just because they shoot it, can they shoot something and say, oh, we're not using these frames over here, or are they not even supposed to be shooting? Like if you have like an agreement for like no nipples, then if they happen to catch one, is that, I don't know, like how much does one freak out?
That's different. Yeah. It's different now. Okay. Now the nudity writers are protecting the actors more. Yeah. At the time we signed nudity writers, but we didn't really have any, we didn't have any way to do anything about it at the time.
There's no teeth.
Yeah, there was no teeth. And once they get it in the can, there's not a lot you could have done about it. But now with nudity writers, especially if the actors have any power and if they have a name or if they're a series regular, they can have certain stipulations that only my right cheek is shown, not my left cheek, only my right boob, or no boobs, or whatever. And then you have to look it over in post-production and make sure that matches.
Yeah. What were some other tricks that they would try to pull?
Trying to get you not to wear a patch.
Is there like artistic merit to that? Or is it just, we want to see this actress's crotch?
Well, that's an argument that's way beyond me, and it's not for me to say, but
I feel like sometimes you can catch a vibe with certain people. You can get, it's like, oh, this one's kind of seems like motivated for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. What was the question?
I was just asking, well, because like, when we started, you said that back in those times that there were like some tricks people tried to pull to take advantage when people weren't as conscious about, all of this stuff. And I was curious, like, what sort of tricks were being pulled? Are there some tricks like that? They're still being pulled today?
No, it's not happening today,
Yeah.
especially in,
It's okay.
network stuff. Because these were films that were independent films that were straight to video. And now the same level of nudity and sexuality is being done, but they're being done on Netflix or Amazon. And so those big corporations are not going to be as skeezy as these, Joe Blow little movie companies. So you do have that going for you. And they do want to protect themselves, because the Joe Blow little movie companies, they were working on independent LLCs for each film, and Amazon is one company. So they've got a lot of assets to protect, and they don't want to have lawsuits.
That's fair. So then how did you make your transition into adding intimacy coordinator to one of your many hats?
Well, when it started becoming a thing, I felt like many people like, oh, that's perfect for me. That is something that speaks to me. That is my particular skill set and history is perfect for this. And while my main passion is directing, I feel like this is alignment with that. And it's almost kind of like second unit directing, although I don't step on another director's toes. Sure. I'm there to facilitate their vision, not my vision. I'm there to bring ideas that they can use or not use. But I feel most at home on a set. Yeah. I feel like I'm really myself when I'm working on a set and working with actors and creating great scenes.
What do you love about it?
I don't know. It's what I've been doing. It's where I've been most at home. Like that first taste of bad on-set coffee is like, I just feel like I'm home. And working with actors, I feel like that's just when I'm really me.
Yeah. It's interesting. You go like, it's almost like you get to direct, like just like being second unit, except instead of like shooting some field with 3 other people, it's like you get to do this one microcosm of the show or of the movie. Yeah.
And when you're making your own project, you have to raise the funds and you do all the prep work and there's a lot of beforehand and a lot of afterhand. And in this, I feel like I just get to come in and do the fun stuff and leave.
And do you think that intimacy coordinators are on the rise in Hollywood? Do you think that's going to become a more regular thing?
I think it's. Well, they have an opinion about it.
They're like, the more the merrier.
They're like, yes. I think it's about to blow up.
Yeah.
I think it's about to blow up. And it's going to become a regular requirement on every set that has intimate scenes.
Is that something like SAG would negotiate type of thing? Or do you think it'll just become a standard practice?
We hope so. SAG just yesterday released their definition of what the job is.
Oh.
And because they wanted to be the first guild to define the position.
Uh-huh.
So they put out a standard protocol and definition of and of what training an intimacy coordinator should have.
What type of training should an intimacy coordinator have?
Well, you should have bystander intervention. Let's see. I've got a list right here, actually. Let me just pull this up.
Fantastic. Serious Kubrick fan. Okay, yeah. I just noticed the sticker on the back of your laptop.
Unconscious bias, preventing sexual harassment, the sexual harassment laws in the state that you work in, which for me is California, obviously. Consent, trauma, also scene study and filmmaking and on-set etiquette. If you have to have been on a set to know what different who does what roles and what roles you work with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into being ready to do it.
Did you learn something new when you were, I guess, I assume you're taking like some courses, you're taking a class here on things with the consent, was there anything you learned? You were like, oh, I never thought about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love taking classes anyway. I take classes about twice a week anyway, constantly on filmmaking, on,
crochet, whatever. I just want to learn stuff.
Not bad.
World War I history. Why not?
I'm taking a film class tonight, actually.
Oh. What class could you still take in film?
Let's see. Tonight's class is the fundamentals of cinematography with DP Matthew Irving. Week 1 is the history of cinema. Why
are you still taking film classes when you're a director and producer?
Because I still love studying it, and I learn things all the time and get reminded of things that I had forgotten, or it sparks new ideas.
That's awesome, because so many people, like, being in an industry for such a long period of time, will just be like get so set in their ways. I feel like there might be. I mean, I'm guessing, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, that like there might be some pushback to this new job in the industry. Like a director's been doing it 30 years, be like, don't tell me how to make the sex scenes in my movies.
Well, I'm sure there is. Yeah. They're not them. You haven't. Well, they're not exactly hiring me, so I don't hear of that. Okay. They're saying it to themselves and to their people.
But yeah, was there anything about I guess intimate scenes that you learned through?
Yeah, I mean, studying consent and trauma. It definitely showed me. It made me recognize things that had happened to me that had affected me that I had kind of buried, and it showed me how to prevent that happening to other people. And it definitely showed me how, like, wow, I tolerated so many things and I went along with things because that was how to work at the time. And so I definitely have learned from studying more. And I feel like if you're not studying, I feel like you always need to be studying because things are changing and they're getting better. And if you're not studying, then you're staying back the way the things were and you're not getting better. And you just won't be along for the ride when things move forward.
Yeah. There's part of that, like when you're remembering stuff from back then, there's part of it that's like left brain, like, okay, now how do I practically apply this to, work now? But what's it feel like to almost be hit with the realization later?
Well, I mean, look, we didn't know any better at the time. I mean, we were doing the best that we could. And as far as the actresses were concerned, I don't want to poo-poo on people from 20 years ago. It happened, and there were definitely some shady characters that I had brushes with, and I pretty much came out fairly unscathed, but I don't remember. I don't know if this answers your question, but
I'm listening.
You know what? It kind of heals any of those scars in me to go forward and help other actors. Mm. Because as a director, you're working with actors, And it's like, it's another extension of that for me. And it fixes those wounds that I have.
Yeah.
Because I can't go back 20 years and go, hey, don't do that to me.
Right.
But I can fix it for other people. And it totally makes that healed for me and me.
Yeah. Are some of those shady characters, I'm not asking you to name names, I'm just saying, but like, are they still
Most of them are dead.
Working? They're almost dead?
Most of them are dead.
Oh, you're like, okay.
Listen, I'm old.
Sure. I don't,
This was back in the day.
no idea.
That Louis B. Mayer was quite a scoundrel.
Any of my listeners get bonus points if they know who
that
Louis
is.
B. Mayer is. Go Regina.
Okay, and I'm not really that old.
No.
That was a joke.
I picked up on that. What in Hollywood do you think plenty still needs to change, but what do you think like the next step, the next like concrete steps should be in the long journey of change?
Wow, that's a big question.
I'm just here on the Man Or podcast doing big things.
Wow. Boy, that's a big question. Well,
if you could go to SAG and DGA and PGA right now and say, here's 3 things we got to be doing. Here's 2 things we got to do like now.
Well, I think that it needs to be a requirement to have an intimacy coordinator on every set where there's intimate scenes. Mm-hmm. And I think, it would be great if we could work under the umbrella of SAG and be covered by SAG. Mm-hmm. That would be, and I feel like that's coming. But also they need to start bringing more of actors into the room, because a lot of these, it's going to change. It's going to develop. There's still little things that I think need to be added to that list of protocol.
Like,
well, like they don't have on the list. They have a protocol of meeting with the producer or doing this, doing that. But there's no protocol that says anything about walking the actors back to their room after the scene.
Well, like aftercare.
Yeah. It's the aftercare definition is very vague. And it's one thing that is so simple, and it could prevent a lot of things. Like the most common violations between actor and actor happen during the scene, but that's being addressed with the choreography. So that's great.
Cool.
That is, but then when the scene's over and they go, great, cut, take, let's moving on. The actors just put their robes on and you go to craft service, or you go, no one's like really sticking around.
So no one's keeping an eye to make sure someone doesn't, tap your ass
or
follow you back to your trailer.
The second most common actor-on-actor violations happen in the dressing room or in a place after the scene. Mm. So just why isn't it just a rule to walk them back or to stick around and make sure? I'm sure conscientious intimacy coordinators are doing that. Yeah. I do that. Yeah. But it's not in the protocol. Why can't you just put a line there that says walk them back to the room?
That makes total sense to me. I did a fucking reality show on Lifetime, and they put us. It was like going on First Date live, and afterwards, like me and the girl, we both were put in separate SUVs. There's a driver, and then there's like a second guy in the car who's like, "No, I have to make sure I can see you walk into your building." Yeah, he's like, just because like one, you were drinking, we have to make sure you don't get hurt, but also we want to make sure no one like. It's probably more for her than me, but we want to make sure no one followed you home on the way back from the shoot. It's
like this actress Sarah Scott that she had the experience of. She was doing a nude scene, and the actor she was working with put her hand on his erect penis during the scene. And then after the scene, they went back to their dressing rooms. And this was like maybe 3 years ago. And he came into her room or brought her into his room or something. And he disrobed and masturbated in front of her. And where was anyone like, when it's time for you to do the scene, the second AD or the second comes to you and they grab the actors and they're like, all right, we're walking to set. They're talking and they're walking. They're like, first team's walking. They've got the flashlight in the ground. Make sure you don't trip on anything. They bring you to set. You do the scene. And then it's like, great, you're wrapped. And then you're just on your own. So it's like, why didn't they just walk them back and make sure that because if someone was right there, he would not have done that. Yeah. And it's so simple. Anyway, I'm going on too long over something so simple.
That's a very important tangent to go on. I mean, that's a really terrible story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the good intimacy coordinators, I'm sure that they're doing that. They're not dumb and they know what they're doing. I'm sure they're doing that. I just feel like because we've got a whole hundreds of new intimacy coordinators to train, let's put that in the rule book.
Yeah. That's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, well, thank you.
Nah. that was a very good idea.
Well, thank you.
I mean, so if there were any, actors listening, of any gender, like what would you give them as a tip to advocate for themselves for now while intimacy coordinators are still getting normalized?
Well, actually, Time's Up just put out a whole guide for that, and there's tips on this guide, and I would send anybody to Time's Up to download the guide for. There's tips on when you work with an intimacy coordinator and when you don't have one, and I would defer to them because they have done a very good job of writing those out.
Okay. Are there any other like really big improvements that's been going on that don't have to do with the intimacy coordinator, but that's been just going on in the industry that maybe the people who aren't in it wouldn't notice?
No, just the technology. The technology is getting so much easier. I mean, I can make a movie on my phone now. Whereas back in the day, it was like you had to have $30,000 just to buy the film. So the technology, I don't know if audiences probably don't know, but the technology is moving. The way you make films is pretty much, it's been the same forever. The crew jobs are still the same.
He's a rowdy one. He's like, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm looking. I'm going in circles. I'm moving around.
My dog is going in circles.
It's going in circles, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's nothing moving here. There's nothing. You're not going to find anything new. It's yes, when you go back that way, it's going to look like a bunch of records again. It's still going to be like that.
His name is Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, is this one also? Are they all directors? Or?
Well, he had a brother when I first adopted him. His brother's name was Fellini, but Fellini passed away.
Rest in peace to both of them.
Yes. And before that, I had one named Stanley Kubrick, and he passed away.
Oh,
so
too soon for both of them.
Yes, for all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you think people should know that you find fascinating about being an intimacy coordinator or about on-set sex scenes that I don't think a lot of us think about?
Well, one of the things that has people scared is they're like, well, are intimacy coordinators going to be like the police? Are they going to make it sanitized? And it's like, actually, no, we can make the sex scenes hotter. Yeah. Because if it's planned in advance, you can really explore the sexualities of these characters and get research and consultants on those types of sex acts and make it more authentic. And
less scissoring.
Yeah, less scissoring and, more authenticity and more real. And you can even make a hot movie like I don't want to poo-poo on Blue is the Warmest Color. I mean, listen, I could make a hot movie like that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even against any type of sex scenes, no matter how explicit, as long as, everyone's consenting to it.
Right.
But I feel like this is going to make sex scenes better.
Yeah.
For everybody. And like, if you're making a movie with sex scenes, why wouldn't you want them better?
Yeah. I think it's such a lame point of view to go, whether it's the on-set stuff or just like kind of getting more affirmative consent in general. Like, I don't think affirmative consent needs to be like the criminal standard, but I think it's the standard for good sex. I think it's the standard for better sex. I mean, Jesus, I've had women ask to kiss me. I've asked to kiss and it's like really hot to just be like, I really want to kiss you right now, rather than just like, let's close our eyes and lean in and hope.
Right. Oh yeah. That can go bad.
and there's so many, because I do get a lot of men who will come, because like, look, I live the sex life that a lot of guys like fantasize about. And I think and I had a guy come up to me at this like sex expo I was at, called the Brooklyn Sex Expo, and I had a booth, and dude comes up to me, he's like, oh yeah, man, I love podcasts, I love Joe Rogan, and I was already like, this is going to be, I'm already concerned. He's like a 50-something-year-old man who loves Joe Rogan. I was like, okay. And, he's probably a libertarian, calls himself liberal. Who knows? And he's like, so what do you think about this Me Too bullshit? Like, it's just going to be so much more difficult to date. But in my mind, I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, it's not going to affect you because you don't date. Like, it's like this isn't going to make your sex worse because I don't think you're having it. So I don't know why you're so pissed off right now, angry man. But the ask, all this stuff, I think makes so much hotter because it's just another step in things. I won't get too graphic, but it's like I've coordinated some like sex scenes with friends or strangers or whatnot where like it was very much scripted, and the script making was kind of the hot part. Like that is kind of the foreplay was all the planning, and then doing it was almost just as hot, maybe only a little bit hotter than all the talking and coordinating. Or actually, at this point, I want you to do that, and I want you to do this. It's like I think all this conversation makes it all hotter, which is I feel like what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fear that you're talking about with this man and some of the people that are afraid of office politics and being and taking sexual harassment classes and being told you can't do this or that the way they used to do it and get away with it. They're afraid, and they should be afraid. Yeah. But for the most part, if you're there to make art, keep your violations to your in your home.
Keep your consent violations at home and offset.
Yeah, exactly. Go to a bar and do some consent violations. I mean, don't do it at work. We're all here to make art, and the team that you've gathered, your employees and your cast, and everyone's there to make art and to bring your own sexual gratification into that and try to force that onto people or make people's work feel degraded and abused. Like, how is that productive to what you're trying to do? You're trying to make a movie or a TV show. It's in your best interest to treat your people better. Yeah. So it's like, if a producer hires someone like me, we're there to protect your actors for you, even if it's against you, because we're covering your ass. We're helping you not fuck up.
So that you can make more of these.
Yeah. I mean, because
have we not noticed that certain people haven't been making stuff recently? That's kind of a reason.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, don't you want to make a good product that does well in the marketplace?
If people are coming out in interviews saying like, yeah, that director made a scissor for 20 minutes and I was not down with it. Yeah. Not a lot of people are going to be excited to go see your flick
or work with you
or any of that. Well, Regina, thank you so much for chatting with me. I think we all learned quite a bit.
I hope so.
Yeah. And where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
Well, I have a website, pinkmermaid.productions. And my intimacy coordinating company is icaft.org. That's Intimacy Coordinators Alliance for Film and Television, ICAFT.org. And then my personal intimacy coordinating website is intimacycoordinating.com.
Ooh, you got in early. You got that good URL. Good for you. There's someone out there with intimacycoordinating1.com.
And 1.j.23456. Yeah.
Well, Regina, thanks again for chatting with me. And why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
All right. Bye. It was great talking to you too.
Truly fascinating conversation with Regina Banali. It's one of those topics that I'm just like so intrigued by, and I cannot wait for this position of intimacy coordinator, to pop up more over the next, several months and years, whenever we're allowed to, shoot movie things again. But I'd love to know what you thought about this week's show. I know we'd both love to. You can hit me up on the Twitter at @BillyPresida. I'm on Instagram at BillyIsPresida. And you can also go to Facebook and like the Man Whore Podcast Facebook fan page. If you want to send something that's a little longer, something a little more intimate, you can send your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your titty pictures to manwhorepod@gmail.com. You can even take a voice memo, send that over, and you'll get to hear yourself on this show. I'm super excited to do the very first monthly Man Whore Munch on Zoom tomorrow night with all the $7 and up members of my fan whore community on Patreon. If you want to join us, join up at the $7 tier or higher at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Next week, we've got on porn performer and Free Speech Coalition member Lotus Lane. Really great episode. Pairs very nicely with this, kind of like a nice red wine with a juicy steak. Looking forward to bringing her to y'all next week. And until then, everybody, stay slutty. Like when it's socially acceptable and medically acceptable to be a little more slutty. Don't be super slutty right now. Try to rein it in. Get digitally slutty. That's what I'm going to stay. Stay slutty online.